Marcus Chen had always been drawn to the outer rim territories where civilization grew thin and the stars felt close enough to touch. As a xenobiologist working for the Terran Survey Corps, he spent most of his time cataloging alien flora and fauna on newly discovered worlds. It was lonely work, but it suited him perfectly. The distress signal came through his ship's communication array at 0347 hours, ship time. Marcus was deep in sleep when the emergency beacon pierced through his dreams, dragging him back to consciousness with its urgent, pulsing rhythm. He stumbled to the control console, still wearing his sleep clothes, and squinted at the readout through bleary eyes. The signal was weak, almost lost in the cosmic background radiation, but it was definitely artificial. More importantly, it was coming from the surface of Kepler 442c, a planet that was supposed to be uninhabited according to all official surveys. Marcus ran a quick diagnostic on his equipment, thinking it might be a malfunction, but the readings remained consistent. Someone or something was down there, and they were in trouble. Marcus had strict protocols to follow in situations like this. He should have immediately contacted Survey Command, waited for backup, and approached any potential first contact scenario with a full diplomatic team. But the signal was growing weaker by the minute, and help was 3 days away at minimum. By the time a proper response team arrived, whatever was sending that distress call would likely be dead. He made his decision. In less than 30 seconds, the planet's surface was a maze of crystalline formations that jutted from the ground like frozen lightning. Marcus had to circle twice before finding a suitable landing spot near the signal source. His ship's sensors indicated a thin but breathable atmosphere, though the gravity was about 20% heavier than Earth standard. He grabbed his emergency medical kit, a portable scanner, and his sidearm before stepping out onto the alien world. The landscape was beautiful in an unsettling way. The crystal formations caught and refracted the light from the system's twin suns, creating rainbow patterns that danced across the pale blue ground. But there was something wrong with the scene. Many of the crystals were shattered, their fragments scattered in patterns that suggested violence rather than natural weathering. Marcus followed his scanner toward the distress signal, picking his way carefully through the crystal maze. The beacon grew stronger as he approached a cluster of particularly large formations. That's when he heard it, a sound unlike anything in his experience. It was part whistle, part harmonic vibration, and it carried a note of such profound distress that it made his chest tighten with sympathy. He found the source behind a partially collapsed crystal wall. The creature was small, no bigger than a house cat, but its anatomy was completely alien. Its body was covered in what looked like living metal scales that shifted color with each labored breath. 6 delicate limbs ended in manipulator appendages that were far too sophisticated for such a young creature. Most striking were its eyes. Large, multifaceted organs that seemed to hold an intelligence far beyond what should be possible in something so small. The creature was dying. Marcus didn't need his medical scanner to tell him that. One of its limbs was badly crushed, and a sticky, silver-blue substance that was probably blood pooled beneath its body. But what made Marcus's heart race was the realization that this wasn't just any alien creature. This was clearly an infant, and an intelligent one at that. The tiny being's eyes tracked his movement as he approached, and the distress calls it was making grew more urgent. Marcus knelt beside it, moving slowly to avoid causing additional panic. The creature tried to scramble away but couldn't manage more than a few inches before collapsing again. "Hey there, little one," Marcus said softly, though he knew the creature couldn't understand his words. "I'm here to help." He activated his medical scanner and ran it over the injured creature. The readings were unlike anything in his database, but some things were universal. The creature was suffering from severe trauma, blood loss, and what appeared to be exposure to toxic elements. Without immediate treatment, it would be dead within the hour. Marcus had no idea what kind of physiology he was dealing with, but he had to try something. He opened his emergency medical kit and pulled out a universal trauma stabilizer, a piece of technology designed to work on a wide variety of biological systems. The device could regulate temperature, provide basic life support, and deliver a cocktail of broad-spectrum healing agents. As he moved the device closer to the creature, it made a sound that was unmistakably one of fear. Marcus paused, meeting those alien eyes that seemed to look straight into his soul. "I know you're scared," he whispered, "but I'm not going to hurt you. I promise." The creature watched him for a long moment, its breathing becoming more labored. Then, in what Marcus would later recognize as an act of incredible trust, it stopped trying to move away and allowed him to attach the medical device to its tiny body. The trauma stabilizer hummed to life, immediately beginning its work of analyzing and treating the creature's injuries. Marcus watched the readouts anxiously, praying that the device's adaptive systems would be able to help. The creature's vital signs, while still alien to him, seemed to stabilize slightly. But Marcus knew this was only a temporary measure. The creature needed more help than his basic medical kit could provide, and he had no idea what kind of environment or diet it required to survive. More concerning was the question of where it had come from. The scattered crystals suggested some kind of attack or disaster, but Marcus couldn't see any signs of a settlement or other structures. As he sat there in the alien landscape, gently monitoring the creature's condition, Marcus began to hear something new. It was a distant sound, carried on the thin atmosphere, a rhythmic thrumming that grew steadily louder. His blood ran cold as he realized what it meant. Something was coming. The creature in his arms seemed to sense it too, its scales shifting to darker colors as it pressed closer to Marcus. Whatever had attacked this place before was returning, and Marcus found himself alone on an alien world with a dying infant of an unknown species. He looked down at the small being in his arms, its trust in him both humbling and terrifying. In that moment, Marcus Chen made another decision that would change everything. He wasn't going to abandon this creature no matter what was coming for them. The thrumming grew louder, and Marcus prepared to make his stand. The ships emerged from behind the largest crystal formation like predators stalking prey. Marcus counted at least 6 vessels, each one roughly the size of a small frigate but with a design philosophy that screamed aggression. Their hulls were dark and angular, covered in what looked like weapon emplacements and sensor arrays. They moved with the coordinated precision of a military unit, spreading out to surround his position. Marcus clutched the alien hatchling closer to his chest, feeling its rapid heartbeat against his palm. The little creature's scales had shifted to a deep purple color, and it was making soft, distressed chirping sounds. Somehow, Marcus knew it recognized these ships, and whatever memory they triggered was not a pleasant one. His own ship was a quarter-mile away across the crystal field, but it might as well have been on another planet. These vessels could vaporize him long before he made it halfway there. Marcus looked around desperately for cover, but the shattered crystal formations offered little protection against military-grade weapons. The lead ship descended until it hovered just 50 feet above the ground. A section of its hull dilated open, and figures began dropping down on gravity nullifiers. Marcus's first look at the aliens who had destroyed this place filled him with a cold dread that went beyond mere fear. They were insectoid, but wrong in ways that hurt to look at directly. Each creature stood nearly 8 feet tall on 4 powerful legs that ended in razor-sharp claws. Their torsos were humanoid enough to be familiar, but covered in a chitinous exoskeleton that gleamed with an oily sheen. Multiple arms sprouted from their shoulders, each ending in manipulators that could serve as either hands or weapons depending on need. But it was their heads that truly disturbed Marcus. They were elongated and predatory, with massive mandibles that could probably bite through steel. Clusters of black eyes dotted their skulls like malignant growths, and when they moved, they did so with the twitchy, unpredictable motion of creatures driven by pure instinct rather than rational thought. The lead creature raised what was obviously a weapon and pointed it directly at Marcus. It made a series of clicking sounds that were probably speech, though they conveyed menace in any language. Marcus slowly raised his free hand in what he hoped was a universal gesture of surrender, while keeping the other arm wrapped protectively around the hatchling. "I don't want any trouble," Marcus called out, knowing they probably couldn't understand him but hoping his tone would convey peaceful intent. "I'm just trying to help an injured creature." The insects exchanged more clicking sounds, and Marcus noticed their weapons remained trained on him. One of them approached closer, its multiple eyes fixed on the bundle in his arms. When it saw the hatchling, it let out a sound that could only be described as hungry. The little creature in Marcus's arms began to shake violently, its scales now cycling through rapid color changes that painted its terror in living hues. It pressed itself against Marcus's chest as if trying to disappear into his jacket. The gesture was so trusting, so desperate, that Marcus felt something fierce and protective rise in his chest. "No," he said firmly. stepping backward even though he had nowhere to go. "You're not touching this, little one." The lead insect tilted its head in what might have been curiosity or amusement. It raised its weapon higher, and Marcus could see energy beginning to build in what was obviously a charging chamber. He had perhaps 10 seconds before they decided to simply kill him and take the hatchling. That's when Marcus remembered something from his xenobiology training. When facing unknown alien species, sometimes the best defense was to demonstrate that you were more dangerous than you appeared. He slowly reached for his sidearm, not to draw it but to activate its emergency beacon. The device would send a priority distress signal directly to Survey Command, but more importantly it would also trigger his ship's automated defense systems. The insects were so focused on him that they never noticed the small, reconnaissance drone that detached itself from his ship and began flying toward their position. Marcus's vessel wasn't a warship, but it carried enough defensive armament to discourage pirates and hostile wildlife. The drone reached optimal range just as the lead insect's weapon finished charging. Marcus threw himself sideways behind a crystal formation just as multiple things happened at once. The insect's energy weapon discharged, turning the spot where he'd been standing into molten slag. His ship's drone opened fire with precision plasma bursts, striking two of the aliens and sending them sprawling. And the hatchling in his arms let out a sound unlike anything he'd heard before. A piercing harmonic call that seemed to resonate through the very crystals around them. The effect was immediate and startling. Every insect froze in place, their weapons lowering slightly as they looked around in apparent confusion. The harmonic call continued, growing stronger and more complex, and Marcus realized the hatchling wasn't just making noise. It was communicating, and whatever message it was sending had given the attackers serious pause. Marcus used the momentary distraction to sprint toward his ship, the hatchling still cradled against his chest. His drone provided covering fire, forcing the insects to take cover among the crystal formations. Behind him, he could hear the aliens recovering from their shock and beginning pursuit. The sprint across the crystal field was the longest 2 minutes of Marcus's life. The gravity was heavier than Earth standard, making every step feel like he was running through thick mud. His lungs burned in the thin atmosphere, and more than once he nearly lost his footing on the treacherous crystal formations. The insects were faster than him on their home terrain, and their weapons fire was getting uncomfortably close. But the hatchling never stopped its harmonic calling, and something about that sound seemed to be affecting their pursuers. Marcus could hear confusion in their clicking speech, as if they couldn't quite understand what they were hearing. It bought him precious seconds. Marcus reached his ship's access ramp just as an energy bolt struck the hull inches from his head. He dove through the airlock, sealing it behind him as more weapons fire impacted the ship's shields. The hatchling was still calling, its voice now amplified by the ship's internal communications system. "Emergency launch," Marcus shouted to his ship's computer as he strapped himself into the pilot's seat, still holding the alien infant. "Get us off this rock." The ship's engines roared to life, lifting them away from the planet's surface just as the insect vessels began to converge on their position. Marcus expected pursuit, expected a running firefight through the system's asteroid field. What he didn't expect was for the insect ships to suddenly break off their attack and retreat behind the crystal formations. As his ship climbed toward orbit, Marcus looked down at the hatchling in his arms. The little creature had stopped its harmonic calling and was now looking up at him with those impossibly intelligent eyes. Its scales had shifted to a warm golden color, and it made a soft sound that was unmistakably one of gratitude. "What did you do down there, little one?" Marcus whispered, gently stroking the creature's metallic scales. "What did you tell them?" The hatchling couldn't answer, of course, but Marcus had the distinct impression that whatever message it had sent, it had been important enough to make their attackers hesitate, to give them the chance they needed to escape. As his ship entered hyperspace, heading for the nearest survey command station, Marcus began to wonder what he had really rescued from that dying world. The hatchling was clearly more than just an ordinary alien creature. Its intelligence, its ability to communicate across species barriers, the way it had affected those insectoid attackers, all of it suggested something extraordinary. Marcus looked down at the sleeping creature in his arms and smiled. Whatever secrets this little being held, he was determined to protect it. Something told him that this rescue was only the beginning of a much larger story. The Survey Command medical facility on Kepler Station was buzzing with activity when Marcus arrived. Word had already spread about his rescue of an unknown alien species, and every xenobiologist, linguist, and medical specialist within 3 sectors was requesting access to examine the hatchling. Marcus had to fight his way through crowds of scientists and reporters just to reach the quarantine bay. Dr. Sarah Chen, the station's chief medical officer and no relation to Marcus despite the shared surname, was waiting for him at the secure entrance. Her expression was a mixture of professional excitement and deep concern. "Marcus, what have you brought us?" she asked, leading him through the decontamination chambers. "The preliminary scans from your ship are showing readings we've never seen before. This creature's biology is completely outside our understanding." Marcus carefully transferred the hatchling to a specialized containment unit that would maintain optimal life support while allowing for detailed study. The little creature had grown stronger during the 3-day journey to the station, its injuries healing at a remarkable rate thanks to the trauma stabilizer. Its scales now showed a healthy silver-blue coloration, and its eyes tracked every movement with alert intelligence. "I need to know what species this is," Marcus said, watching as the medical team began their non-invasive scans. "Those insects that attacked us, they specifically wanted this little one. There's something important about it." Dr. Chen nodded, studying the readouts from her instruments. "The genetic structure is unlike anything in our databases. Highly organized, almost artificially optimized. The neural activity is off the charts for a creature this size, and these scales aren't just armor. There's some kind of biomechanical interface. This isn't just an alien, Marcus. This is evidence of a highly advanced civilization." Over the next several hours, Marcus watched as team after team of specialists examined the hatchling. Linguists tried to decode the harmonic communications they'd recorded during the escape. Biologists marveled at the creature's rapid healing and adaptive metabolism. Engineers studied the biomechanical properties of its scales, which seemed to interface directly with technological systems. But it was Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the station's xenopsychologist, who made the breakthrough that changed everything. "It's not just communicating," she announced during the evening briefing. "It's learning. Watch this." She activated a holographic display showing the hatchling's brain activity over the past 6 hours. The patterns were unlike anything Marcus had seen, complex, dynamic, and growing more sophisticated by the minute. "It's been listening to everything around it," Dr. Tanaka continued. "The computer systems, our conversations, even the background radiation from the station's engines. And it's not just processing the information, it's integrating it, understanding it." As if responding to her words, the hatchling suddenly made a sound that was unmistakably an attempt at human speech. The word was distorted by its alien vocal structure, but the meaning was clear. "Marcus." The room fell silent. The little creature was looking directly at him through the transparent walls of its containment unit, its scales shifting to warm gold. It spoke again, this time more clearly. "Marcus, help." "Thank you." Marcus felt his knees go weak. "How is that possible?" "It's been here less than a day." "According to these readings," Dr. Tanaka said, her voice hushed with awe, "its learning rate is approximately 50 times faster than the average human child. It's not just intelligent, it's a cognitive prodigy. And there's something else." She manipulated the holographic display, showing a deeper analysis of the creature's neural patterns. "These aren't the brainwaves of an individual consciousness. There's a background resonance, a harmonic frequency, that suggests connection to something larger. I think this creature is part of a collective intelligence." The implications hit Marcus like a physical blow. If the hatchling was connected to others of its kind, then its rescue might have been detected by its entire species. But more concerning was what that meant about the insectoid attackers. If they were specifically hunting members of this species, then they were engaged in something that could only be called genocide. The next morning brought confirmation of Marcus's fears. Long-range sensors detected a massive fleet of ships approaching the Kepler system. The vessels were unlike anything in the databases, organic-looking designs that seemed to grow rather than be built. With energy signatures that defied conventional physics, Admiral Harrison Torres, the station commander, called an emergency meeting of all senior staff. The holographic display in the command center showed the approaching fleet, over 200 ships of various sizes, all heading directly for Kepler Station. Unknown vessels. "This is Admiral Torres of Terran Survey Command," the Admiral transmitted on all frequencies. "You are approaching a sovereign Terran facility. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions. The response came not through the communication systems, but through the hatchling itself. The little creature suddenly began making its harmonic calls, but now they were amplified and modulated in ways that the station's computers could barely process. The sound resonated through every speaker, every piece of electronic equipment, even the metal bulkheads themselves. When the harmonics finally ceased, the communication board lit up with an incoming transmission. The image that appeared on the main screen made everyone in the command center gasp. The being that looked back at them was clearly an adult of the same species as the hatchling, but its presence was overwhelming. Its scales shimmered with patterns of light that seemed to convey meaning beyond words, and its eyes held the weight of eons. When it spoke, its voice somehow bypassed their translation systems and spoke directly to their minds. "I am First Singer Cathera of the Resonance Fleet," the being said. "You have saved one of our young from the Devourers. This act has not gone unnoticed." Admiral Torres stepped forward, his military training keeping his voice steady despite the unprecedented situation. "We are honored to have helped. The child was injured and our people provided medical assistance. We seek no reward, only peaceful contact." The first singer's expression shifted in what might have been surprise. "You ask for no reward? No territory, no technology, no servants? This is unexpected. The Devourers told us that all species seek to consume others. Yet you risk your lives to save our young and ask for nothing in return." Marcus felt compelled to step forward. "With respect, First Singer, we helped because it was the right thing to do. Where I come from, we believe that intelligence is precious, regardless of what form it takes. Your child was hurt and afraid. We couldn't just leave it to die." The alien leader was quiet for a long moment, its scales cycling through complex patterns. When it spoke again, there was something different in its mental voice, a warmth that hadn't been there before. "You speak of concepts we thought lost in this galaxy," First Singer Cathera said. "For too long we have known only the Devourers and their endless hunger. They have pursued us across 1,000 worlds, consuming our people, our culture, our very essence. We had forgotten that kindness could exist among the stars." The hatchling in the medical bay suddenly made a complex series of harmonic calls, and the first singer's expression brightened noticeably. "Young Cord tells me of your bravery, Marcus, who saves the lost. It tells me how you stood against the Devourers to protect it, how you risked your own life for a being you had never seen before. This is a debt that cannot be easily repaid." Marcus shook his head. "No debt was created. We helped because we could, because it was right. That's what people do." The first singer's scales now glowed with patterns that seemed almost joyful. "What people do?" it repeated slowly. "Yes, I think we would like to meet these people of yours, Marcus, who saves the lost. We would like to learn about this humanity that saves rather than devours." Admiral Torres cleared his throat carefully. "We would be honored to arrange formal first contact protocols. Perhaps we could begin with cultural exchanges, sharing knowledge and—" "No," the first singer interrupted, and Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "The time for gradual contact has passed. The Devourers have found this system. They followed our ship here, just as they have followed us everywhere. War is coming to your worlds, whether you wish it or not." The alien leader's image leaned forward, its ancient eyes fixed directly on Marcus. "But you saved our young showed us that not all species are driven by hunger. For this gift, we offer you something in return, alliance. Stand with us against the Devourers, and we will teach you secrets that will help your people survive what is coming." Marcus looked around the command center at the faces of his colleagues, scientists and explorers who had signed up to study distant worlds, not fight in an interstellar war. But he also thought of the little hatchling in the medical bay, of its trust and innocence, of the insectoid creatures that had been so eager to destroy it. Some choices, Marcus realized, made themselves. The first Devourer assault came just 18 hours after the Resonance Fleet's arrival. Marcus was in the medical bay with young Cord when the station's alarm systems began screaming their warnings. Through the transparent aluminum windows, he could see flashes of energy weapons fire lighting up the darkness of space like deadly fireworks. Cord pressed against Marcus's chest, its scales cycling through rapid color changes that he had learned indicated distress. The hatchling had grown remarkably in just the few days since his rescue, now roughly the size of a small dog, but it still sought comfort from the human who had saved it. "It's okay, little one," Marcus whispered, though he wasn't sure he believed his own words. "We're going to be fine." The medical bay's communication system crackled to life with Admiral Torres's voice. All non-essential personnel to emergency stations. This is not a drill. We are under attack by hostile forces. Dr. Chen burst through the medical bay doors, her face pale but determined. Marcus, we need to move Cord to the secure bunker levels. If those things get through our defenses... She didn't need to finish. They had all seen the recordings from the planet's surface. The casual brutality with which the Devourers had destroyed whatever civilization had once existed there. Marcus scooped Cord into his arms and followed Dr. Chen toward the emergency lifts. As they descended through the station's levels, Marcus could feel the structure shuddering under weapons impacts. The lights flickered intermittently, and the artificial gravity wavered just enough to make his stomach lurch. But there was something else too, a deep harmonic vibration that seemed to resonate through the station's hull. The resonance fleet is fighting back, Dr. Chen observed, checking her scanner readings. Whatever weapons they're using, they're unlike anything in our databases. The secure bunker was already crowded with civilians and non-combat personnel when they arrived. Marcus found a corner where he could sit with Cord, who had begun making soft harmonic sounds that seemed to calm everyone within hearing range. It was then that Marcus noticed something remarkable happening. The station's communication systems began picking up the harmonic frequencies from the resonance fleet's weapons, translating them into something approaching music. But it wasn't just random noise. There were patterns, melodies, themes that wove together into something that could only be described as a symphony of war. Young Cord's vocalizations began to harmonize with the distant battle song, and suddenly Marcus could understand what he was hearing. The resonance fleet wasn't just fighting. They were coordinating their efforts through music, using harmonic frequencies to share tactical information faster than any computer network could manage. They're winning, Marcus breathed, as the meaning of the musical patterns became clear to him. The Devourers can't coordinate effectively against their harmonic communication system. Dr. Chen looked at him strangely. How can you possibly know that? Marcus gestured to Cord, who was now glowing softly with internal bioluminescence. It's translating for me, teaching me to understand their battle language. The implications were staggering. The hatchling wasn't just intelligent. It was actively working to bridge the communication gap between humans and its own species. In the middle of their first interstellar battle, young Cord was creating the foundation for true cooperation between their peoples. The battle raged for 3 hours. When the all-clear finally sounded, Marcus and the other civilians emerged from the bunkers to find Kepler Station scarred, but intact. Through the observation windows, they could see the wreckage of Devourer ships drifting in space, while the organic curves of resonance fleet vessels moved in graceful formations around the station. Admiral Torres called for an immediate meeting with the resonance fleet leadership. The station's main conference room had been hastily modified to accommodate the alien visitors, with atmospheric processors and gravity adjusters to make them comfortable. First Singer Cathra entered the chamber accompanied by 2 other members of the Resonance Fleet command staff. Each was unique in their own way, with different patterns of bioluminescence and scale configuration, but all shared the same aura of ancient wisdom and barely contained power. The first wave has been repelled, Cathra announced, its mental voice carrying undertones of grim satisfaction. But it was only a probe. The Devourers are testing your defenses, learning your capabilities. The true assault will come soon. Admiral Torres leaned forward across the conference table. How long do we have? Perhaps a standard day, perhaps less, replied one of Cathara's companions, introducing itself as War Singer Nexus. They will gather their full swarm and attack with overwhelming force. Your station cannot withstand such an assault. Then we evacuate, the Admiral said immediately. Get our people to safety and... No. The interruption came from Marcus, and everyone in the room turned to look at him in surprise. He stood up slowly, Cord cradled in his arms, his mind racing with the implications of what he was about to suggest. If we run now, they'll just follow us, Marcus continued. The Devourers have been hunting the resonance across the galaxy for who knows how long. Running isn't the answer. We need to make a stand here, show them that this time is different. Cathara's scales shifted to patterns that Marcus was beginning to recognize as curiosity. What do you propose, Marcus, who saves the lost? Marcus took a deep breath, knowing that what he was about to suggest could either save both their species or destroy them all. Integration. Your people fight with harmonic coordination, but you've been doing it with organic vessels and traditional weapons. What if we combined your harmonic abilities with human technology? The room erupted in excited discussion as the implications became clear. Dr. Chen was already pulling up technical specifications on her portable display, showing how the station's computer systems could be modified to interface with harmonic frequencies. Admiral Torres was calculating the logistics of equipping human ships with resonance-designed communication arrays, but it was young Cord who provided the key insight. The hatchling suddenly began making a complex series of harmonic calls, its scales lighting up with patterns that seemed to flow like liquid light. The sounds were picked up by the station's communication system and translated into mathematical equations that appeared on every screen in the room. Incredible, Dr. Chen whispered. It's showing us how to create artificial harmonic interfaces. We could link our ship's computers directly into the Resonance Fleet's coordination network. Warsinger Nexus studied the equations with obvious amazement. This young one has solved problems that have puzzled our greatest theorists for generations. How is this possible? Kythera's expression had shifted to something approaching wonder as it looked at the small creature in Marcus's arms. Cord is not just any hatchling. It is what we call a bridge singer, one born with the ability to connect different forms of consciousness. They appear perhaps once in 1,000 generations. And you saved it, Warsinger Nexus added, its mental voice carrying a note of awe. Of all the possible encounters in the vast galaxy, a human found and protected our most precious gift, just when we needed it most. Marcus looked down at Cord, who gazed back up at him with those impossibly intelligent eyes. The little creature made a soft sound that somehow conveyed affection, gratitude, and determination all at once. We have work to do, Marcus said firmly. The Devourers want to consume everything in their path. Well, let's show them what happens when different species choose to build something together, instead of tearing each other apart. Over the next several hours, Kepler Station transformed into a hub of unprecedented cooperation. Human engineers worked alongside resonance technicians to retrofit ships with harmonic communication systems. Scientists from both species shared knowledge that had taken centuries to accumulate. And at the center of it all, young Cord served as a living translator, helping bridge the gap between two completely different ways of understanding the universe. As the enhanced fleet prepared for battle, Marcus realized that something extraordinary was happening. They weren't just creating a military alliance. They were forging the first true partnership between humanity and an alien species. Win or lose, the galaxy would never be the same. The Devourer swarm appeared on long-range sensors just as the sun set over Kepler Station's observation deck. This time there were thousands of ships, a dark cloud of hunger and destruction that blotted out the stars themselves. But the defenders were ready, and for the first time in the galaxy's long history, the Devourers would face an enemy that fought not as individuals seeking survival, but as a unified force seeking something greater than themselves. The Devourer swarm filled space like a plague of locusts, their dark ships blotting out entire starfields as they approached Kepler Station. Marcus stood on the command deck, young Cord perched on his shoulder watching as thousands of enemy vessels moved in perfect synchronization toward their position. The sight should have been terrifying, but instead he felt something he had never experienced before, the absolute certainty that came from being part of something greater than himself. The harmonic integration was complete. Every human ship in the defense fleet now carried resonance communication arrays. Their computer systems linked directly into the Bridge Singer network that Cord had helped create. For the first time in galactic history, two completely different species were about to fight as one unified force. Admiral Torres stood at the central command station, his hands moving across controls that now responded to both touch and harmonic frequency. Beside him, First Singer Kythera maintained a constant stream of musical communication with the resonance fleet, coordinating movements with a precision that human technology alone could never achieve. Enemy fleet entering optimal range, reported the tactical officer, her voice steady despite the overwhelming odds they faced. Estimate 14,000 individual vessels, including what appeared to be capital ships of unknown configuration. Cord made a soft harmonic sound that Marcus had learned meant danger. But there was something else in the little creature's voice, determination, even eagerness. The hatchling scales glowed with complex patterns that seemed to pulse in rhythm with the ship's systems. "Bridge Singer ready?" Kythera announced, its mental voice carrying a note of anticipation. All fleet elements report harmonic synchronization at maximum efficiency. We fight as one voice, one purpose, one song. The first wave of Devourer ships accelerated toward the station, their weapons charging with the distinctive crackling sound of predatory hunger. But instead of meeting them with conventional tactics, the Allied fleet did something unprecedented. They began to sing. The battle symphony started as a low harmonic drone from the resonance ships, a sound that seemed to make space itself vibrate with purpose. Then the human vessels joined in, their modified communication arrays adding electronic harmonies that wove together with the organic music of their alien allies. The result was something that transcended mere coordination. It was art made, manifest in the cosmos. Marcus felt the music flow through him as chords harmonic. Abilities linked his consciousness directly to the fleet network. Suddenly he could perceive the battle from thousands of different perspectives simultaneously. Every ship, every weapon, every tactical decision unified into a single overwhelming awareness. The Devourers attacked in their traditional swarming formation, expecting their enemies to break apart under the sheer weight of numbers. Instead, they encountered something they had never faced before, a defense that moved like a living organism, anticipating their every move and responding with impossible coordination. Human destroyers danced between resonance cruisers in formations that would have been suicidal without harmonic coordination, their weapons firing in perfect synchronization to create overlapping fields of destruction. Energy beams and plasma torpedoes moved in choreographed patterns that turned the battlefield into a deadly light show. But the Devourers adapted quickly, as they always had. Their ships began to spread out, trying to force the defenders to divide their attention across multiple fronts. It was a tactic that had worked against every other species they had encountered, but they hadn't counted on the bridge singer's abilities. Cord suddenly made a complex series of harmonic calls, and Marcus felt the little creature's consciousness expand across the entire fleet network. The Hatchling was taking direct control of the tactical coordination, its incredible intelligence processing battle data from thousands of sources simultaneously. Impossible, War Singer Nexus breathed over the harmonic link. No bridge singer has ever maintained network integrity across so many consciousness matrices. But Cord was doing more than just maintaining the network. It was evolving it. Marcus could feel the harmonic frequencies shifting and adapting, creating new forms of communication that allowed for even deeper integration between human and resonance forces. The result was devastating to the Devourer advance. Every time they attempted to exploit what appeared to be a weakness in the Allied formation, they found themselves walking into perfectly coordinated traps. Human ships would suddenly appear where resonance vessels had been moments before, their weapons already locked onto target. Energy shields would collapse and reform in patterns that channeled enemy fire into harmless directions. For the first time in the Devourer's long history of conquest, they were being outmaneuvered by their prey. The enemy fleet commander, a massive creature visible through the transparent sections of its ship's bridge, began issuing new orders. The Devourer formation suddenly shifted, pulling back from the main battle line and spreading out in a pattern that Marcus recognized from Cord's earlier teachings. "They're going to try to consume the bridge singer directly," Kythera announced, its mental voice tight with concern. "If they can disrupt Cord's harmonic abilities, the network will collapse." A full third of the Devourer fleet suddenly broke away from the main battle and began accelerating directly toward Kepler Station. Their intent was clear: sacrifice part of their force to eliminate the source of the Allied coordination. "All ships, fall back to protect the station," Admiral Torres ordered, but Cord made a negative harmonic sound that somehow conveyed absolute certainty. Marcus suddenly understood what the little creature intended to do. "No, Cord, you're too young. The harmonic load will—" But the bridge singer was already acting. Its consciousness expanded beyond the fleet network, reaching out toward the approaching Devourer ships themselves. Marcus felt a moment of absolute terror as he realized what Cord was attempting. It was going to try to establish harmonic contact with the enemy. The attempt should have been impossible. The Devourers were creatures of pure consumption, their minds shaped by eons of predatory instinct. They had no concept of cooperation, no understanding of harmony or unity. But Cord was not trying to communicate with their minds, it was reaching deeper, touching something more fundamental. What happened next would be remembered as the moment that changed everything in the galaxy. The harmonic frequencies emanating from the little bridge singer suddenly shifted to a pattern that Marcus had never heard before, something primal and ancient that seemed to resonate with the very fabric of space-time itself. The effect on the Devourer ships was immediate and shocking. Their perfect formation began to waver as individual vessels started responding to the harmonic commands. For the first time in their species' history, the Devourers found themselves influenced by something other than their own hunger. But the effort was taking its toll on Cord. The little creature's bioluminescence was flickering irregularly, and Marcus could feel the strain through their connection. No bridge singer had ever attempted to establish harmonic control over a hostile species, and the feedback was threatening to burn out Cord's neural pathways. "Kythera, we have to stop this," Marcus called out. "Cord is going to kill itself trying to control them." The first singer's expression was one of awe mixed with desperate concern. "I cannot interfere. If I disrupt the harmonic pattern now, the backlash will destroy Cord's mind completely." Marcus looked down at the little creature on his shoulder, its scales now flashing in rapid, chaotic patterns as it struggled to maintain control over thousands of hostile minds. The trust in those alien eyes was absolute. Cord believed that Marcus would find a way to help, just as he had during their first meeting on the Crystal Planet. And suddenly, Marcus knew what he had to do. "I'm going in after it," he announced, reaching for the harmonic interface controls. "Marcus, no," Dr. Chen protested. "Human consciousness isn't designed for direct harmonic integration. The neural feedback could permanently damage your brain." Marcus met her concerned gaze with a smile. "Then I guess it's a good thing I have the best xenobiologist in the sector standing by to put me back together again." Before anyone could stop him, Marcus activated the direct neural link and felt his consciousness merge completely with Cord's expanded awareness. The sensation was like being struck by lightning while drowning in an ocean of alien thoughts. But he pushed through the disorientation and reached out toward the struggling bridge singer. Together, human determination and resonance harmony began to impose order on the chaos of devourer minds. And for the first time in galactic history, the hunters found themselves becoming the hunted. Marcus felt his consciousness scatter across thousands of alien minds like droplets of water hitting a windshield. Each devourer thought pattern was a shard of pure hunger, a crystallized need to consume that had been refined over millions of years of evolution. The mental contact was like grasping broken glass with bare hands, but he held on, drawing strength from Cord's presence beside him in the harmonic network. The little bridge singer's consciousness was blazing like a star in the network, burning itself out to maintain control over the enemy fleet. Marcus could feel Cord's determination, its absolute refusal to let the Devourers reach the station where so many beings had shown it kindness. The hatchling would die before it allowed harm to come to those who had protected it. Not alone, Marcus projected through the harmonic link, wrapping his human stubbornness around Cord's failing strength. "We do this together." What happened next had never occurred before in the galaxy's long history. Human creativity began to merge with resonance harmony, creating new patterns of thought that neither species could have achieved alone. Marcus's mind worked like a filter, taking Cord's pure harmonic control and shaping it into something the Devourers couldn't resist. Instead of trying to impose foreign concepts like cooperation or mercy on minds that had no framework for understanding them, Marcus began to redirect their hunger. He showed them a new kind of consumption, not the destruction of other species, but the integration of their knowledge, their experiences, their unique perspectives on existence. The effect rippled through the Devourer fleet like a virus of enlightenment. Ships that had been moments away from firing on Kepler Station suddenly found themselves questioning why they sought to destroy rather than learn. The perfect unity of their swarm began to fracture as individual Devourers started to experience something they had never known before: curiosity. Back on the station's command deck, First Singer Kythera watched in amazement as the readings from the harmonic network showed impossible results. "The consumption patterns are inverting," it announced to the stunned command staff. "They're not trying to devour anymore, they're trying to understand." Admiral Torres stared at the tactical display, where thousands of Devourer ships had stopped their attack and were now moving in confused, experimental patterns. "How is this possible? These creatures have been killing and consuming for millennia." Marcus is rewriting their fundamental drives, Dr. Chen said, her voice filled with awe as she monitored the neural feedback readings. He's not changing what they are, he's changing what they hunger for. Through the harmonic network, Marcus could feel the change spreading through the Devourer fleet like wildfire. Creatures that had known only the simple pleasure of destruction were suddenly experiencing the far more complex satisfaction of learning. Their ships began to approach the Allied fleet not as predators, but as beings desperate to understand this new form of existence. But the transformation came at a terrible cost. Marcus could feel his own neural pathways burning under the strain of maintaining harmonic control over so many minds. Beside him in the network, Cord's consciousness was flickering like a candle in a hurricane, the little bridge singer pushing itself beyond all safe limits to maintain the connection. "We're losing them both," Dr. Chen reported, her medical scanner showing dangerous spikes in both Marcus's and Cord's neural activity. "Their minds can't handle this level of integration much longer." Kithara made a decision that went against every instinct of its species. The first singer opened its own consciousness to the harmonic network, adding its ancient wisdom and vast experience to the fragile connection that Marcus and Cord were struggling to maintain. "I stand with you." "Bridge singer," Kithara projected across the network. "I stand with you, Marcus, who saves the lost. Let us finish what we began." One by one, other members of the Resonance Fleet joined the network, each consciousness adding its strength to the growing harmonic matrix. Fazinga Nexus, Deepsinger Chorus, even the youngest members of the fleet. All of them linked their minds to support the unprecedented transformation taking place. The combined willpower of an entire species flowed through Marcus and Cord, giving them the strength they needed to complete the work they had started. The last vestiges of the Devourer's predatory programming crumbled under the weight of so much focused intention, replaced by something that had never existed before in their species, the desire to create rather than destroy. When the harmonic network finally collapsed, Marcus found himself back in his own body, sprawled on the command deck with Cord cradled protectively in his arms. Both of them were unconscious, their neural systems completely exhausted from the unprecedented mental strain they had endured. But around them, the impossible had become reality. The Devourer fleet hung motionless in space, their ships broadcasting primitive harmonic signals that expressed concepts their species had never possessed words for. Wonder, gratitude, the desire to learn and grow and become something more than they had been. Admiral Torres opened a communication channel to the enemy fleet, his voice careful and diplomatic. "This is Admiral Torres of Kepler Station. We want to understand what just happened here." The response came not in the clicking, predatory language the Devourers had used before, but in a crude attempt at harmonic communication. The words were broken and difficult to understand, but the meaning was clear. "We hunger, but not for flesh. We hunger for knowledge, for friendship. Teach us, please." Dr. Chen looked up from her medical scanners, tears streaming down her face. "They're both stable. Marcus and Cord are going to be fine. And according to these readings, the changes they made to the Devourer neural patterns appear to be permanent." First, Singer Kithara approached the unconscious pair, its scales glowing with patterns that Marcus had learned to recognize as deep respect. "What they have accomplished today will be remembered for as long as consciousness exists in this galaxy. They have not just saved our species, they have redeemed an entire race from the darkness of their own nature." As word of the transformation spread throughout the galaxy, other species that had been hiding from the Devourer threat began to emerge from their hiding places. The news seemed impossible to believe. The galaxy's greatest predators had been converted into its newest students, eager to learn about cooperation, art, science, and all the other concepts they had spent millennia destroying. But perhaps most remarkable of all was the relationship that developed between Marcus and the transformed Devourers. They saw him as the one who had shown them a new way to exist, and they began to refer to him by a title that translated roughly as the Hunger Turner, the being who had taught them that there were things worth consuming that didn't require destruction. When Marcus finally woke up 3 days later, the first thing he saw was Cord's concerned face hovering over him, the little bridge singer's scales glowing with relief and affection. Around them, the medical bay was filled with flowers and gifts from dozens of species, tributes to the human and the hatchling who had changed everything. "How do you feel?" Dr. Chen asked, running her medical scanner over his neural pathways. Marcus sat up slowly, still feeling the echoes of thousands of alien thoughts in the back of his mind. Different, he said honestly. Like I've been connected to something vast and wonderful, and now I'm back to being just myself again. Cord made a soft harmonic sound that somehow conveyed comfort and understanding. The little creature had grown noticeably during their unconsciousness, its intelligence developing at an even faster rate than before. But despite its rapid maturation, it still sought comfort from the human who had first shown it kindness. "What happens now?" Marcus asked, looking out the medical bay window at the mixed fleet of ships that now surrounded Kepler Station. Resonance vessels, human ships, and even a few converted devourer craft working together in peaceful cooperation. Kithra's mental voice came through the room's communication system, warm with affection and respect. "Now, Marcus, who saves the lost, we begin the real work. We have shown that transformation is possible, but maintaining it will require constant effort. The galaxy needs teachers, bridges between species, guardians of understanding." Marcus looked down at Cord, who gazed back up at him with those impossibly intelligent eyes. The little bridge singer made a sound that didn't need translation. It was the harmonic equivalent of adventure. "I think," Marcus said, smiling as he gently stroked Cord's metallic scales, "we're just getting started." 6 months after the transformation of the Devourer fleet, Marcus stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Harmony Station, watching as ships from dozens of species worked together to build something unprecedented in galactic history, a true interspecies community. The space around the station buzzed with activity, as resonance bioships grew new modules alongside human-built habitation rings, while converted Devourer vessels carefully transported delicate scientific equipment with the same precision they had once used for warfare. Cord, now grown to the size of a large dog and bearing the intricate scale patterns of a young adult, perched on the railing beside him. The bridge singer's abilities had continued to develop at an extraordinary rate, and it could now maintain harmonic networks across entire star systems without strain. More importantly, it had begun training other young members of various species in the art of interspecies communication. "The Zolonian delegation has arrived," Cord announced, its voice now a perfect blend of harmonic tones and human speech. "They bring 17 different proposals for cultural exchange programs, but they're still nervous about the former Devourers." Marcus smiled, remembering his own first reaction to the transformed predators. It was understandable. Few species could easily accept that creatures who had terrorized the galaxy for millennia were now eager to learn pottery, music theory, and collaborative farming techniques. "The integration process is different for everyone," Marcus replied, watching as a Devourer ship carefully maneuvered a massive art installation created by the crystalline inhabitants of the Andorian collective. "Some adapt quickly, others need more time. The transformation hadn't been perfect or complete. While the majority of the Devourer fleet had embraced their new nature with enthusiasm, a few scattered groups had rejected the change and fled to the galaxy's outer reaches. These holdouts still posed a threat, but they were no longer an unstoppable force. More importantly, they were outnumbered by their transformed kin, who had become some of the galaxy's most effective peacekeepers. Dr. Chen emerged from the station's central hub, her arms full of research tablets and her face bright with excitement. Over the past months, she had become the leading expert on interspecies neurology, studying how the harmonic integration process could be safely adapted for other situations. "Marcus, you need to see this," she said, activating a holographic display that showed brain scans from various species. "The neural pathways we established during the transformation, they're not just maintaining themselves, they're evolving. The former Devourers are developing completely new forms of consciousness. The implications were staggering. The creatures that had once been the galaxy's greatest threat were becoming something entirely new, a species defined not by consumption, but by curiosity, creativity, and an almost desperate desire to contribute positively to the galactic community. There's more," Dr. Chen continued. "The harmonic patterns they're generating are starting to influence other species in subtle ways. We're seeing increased empathy, better communication skills, enhanced cooperative abilities across multiple populations. It's like they're broadcasting a signal that makes everyone around them more capable of working together. Cord's scales brightened with patterns that Marcus had learned to recognize as excitement. "The symphony grows," the bridge singer said, using the term it had coined for the ever-expanding network of harmonic communication that now linked hundreds of worlds. Each new voice makes the music richer. A chime from the station's communication system announced an incoming transmission. The holographic display activated to show first singer Kithara, now serving as the chief coordinator for what had become known as the Galactic Harmony Initiative. The ancient being looked tired but deeply satisfied. "Marcus Cord, I bring news from the outer sectors," Kithara announced. "The Void-Touched have made contact." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. The Void-Touched were a mysterious species that existed in the dark spaces between galaxies, being so alien that no one had ever successfully communicated with them. They had observed galactic events for eons without ever directly interfering, leading many to believe they were either extinct or completely indifferent to the affairs of other species. "What kind of contact?" Marcus asked carefully. "They wish to learn about the transformation process," Kithara replied, its mental voice carrying undertones of awe. "They have been watching our work with great interest, and they believe our methods might help them with a situation they face in their own realm." Cord suddenly made a complex harmonic sound that conveyed urgency and concern. "They speak of others," the bridge singer translated. "Ancient things that hunger not for matter or energy but for consciousness itself. The Void-Touched have been fighting them alone for longer than our civilizations have existed." The pieces clicked together in Marcus's mind with terrifying clarity. The galaxy's struggles with the Devourers had been merely a small echo of a much larger conflict, taking place in the cosmic dark. The Void-Touched had been protecting not just their own realm, but preventing something far worse than the Devourers from reaching inhabited space. "They want our help," Marcus said, and it wasn't a question. Kithara's confirmation came with a sense of both honor and apprehension. "They believe that the harmonic integration techniques we developed might be effective against these consciousness predators. But they warn that the risk is immense. If we fail, we could lose not just our lives, but our very ability to think and feel." Marcus looked out at the thriving community around Harmony Station, at species that had been enemies for millennia, now working together to build something beautiful. He thought of young devourer children learning to paint, of resonance elders teaching former predators to sing lullabies, of human engineers collaborating with crystalline architects to design impossible structures. "We've come this far," he said finally. "How can we stop now?" Over the following weeks, preparations began for what would either be the greatest triumph in galactic history or its final catastrophe. The best minds from dozens of species worked together to enhance the harmonic integration technology, while fleets of ships from across the galaxy began gathering for what could be their last mission. The former Devourers, now calling themselves the Transformed, volunteered in overwhelming numbers for the expedition. They had experienced firsthand the liberation that came from being freed from destructive impulses, and they were eager to offer that same gift to others, even at the cost of their own existence. On the day of departure, Marcus stood in the shuttle bay of the expedition flagship, watching as beings from across the galaxy said goodbye to their loved ones. Cord, now bearing the full adult markings of a prime bridge singer, had grown to nearly human height and radiated an aura of calm authority that helped keep everyone focused on their mission. "Are you afraid?" Cord asked, its voice carrying the musical harmonies that had become as familiar to Marcus as his own heartbeat. Marcus considered the question carefully. "Terrified," he admitted, "but also hopeful. We've proven that even the most fundamental aspects of consciousness can be changed, that creatures driven by pure destruction can learn to create instead. If we can do that, maybe we can face whatever's waiting for us in the void." The expedition fleet moved through space like a symphony made manifest, ships from hundreds of worlds flying in formations that would have been impossible without harmonic coordination. At their head flew the Void-Touched vessels, beings of pure thought encased in structures that seemed to bend reality around them. As they approached the edge of known space, Marcus felt the weight of everything they had accomplished over the past months. A dying alien hatchling had led to the transformation of the galaxy's greatest predators, which had led to an unprecedented alliance of species, which was now leading them toward a confrontation that would determine the fate of consciousness itself. "Whatever happens out there," Marcus said to Cord as they entered the dark between galaxies, I want you to know that saving you was the best decision I ever made." Cord's scales glowed with warm affection as it replied, "And teaching us that kindness exists in the universe was the greatest gift you could have given us all." Behind them, the lights of 100 worlds faded into the cosmic distance. Ahead lay the unknown, and creatures that fed on the very essence of thought and feeling. But for the first time in the universe's long history, they would not face this threat alone. The symphony of consciousness they had created would play on, no matter what darkness awaited them in the void. And perhaps if they were very lucky and very brave, they might even teach the darkness itself to sing. The expedition disappeared into the space between galaxies, carrying with them the hopes and dreams of countless worlds. And back on Harmony Station, a small monument was erected, not to mourn their passing, but to celebrate the moment when a human saved a dying alien child and changed the fundamental nature of what it meant to be alive in an infinite universe. The plaque bore a simple inscription in the harmonic script that had become the universal language of cooperation. Here began the symphony that made strangers into family and enemies into friends. Here began the music that would outlast the stars themselves.